Hello, everyone, and welcome to Giants presented by DOBI Real Estate. I'm your host, Simon Thomas, and with us today is Dr. Justin Kammo. Dr. Kammo is a master orthodontist with 3 offices, very impressive, a powerful social media presence. His patient care, innovation, community involvement, family dynamic is very impressive, and his wife is a dentist as well. So I'm super excited to have him on the show today. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This is a totally different business than we've had in the past, and I love talking to people that have different things going on. So this, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. All right, so orthodontist, talk to me. How did you get into that?
So long journey, a lot of schooling. Went to school, Wayne State for undergrad. You have to be a dentist first to become an orthodontist, so you got to make sure you like dentistry. So my parents always pushed us to go into the medical field. A lot of Chaldeans, parents, old school, want to go have someone to go into the medical field, and that just wasn't for me. I like dentistry because the lifestyle, clean work. So I went and became a dentist. It takes 4 years to become a dentist. So I went to University of Michigan. And then from there, you got to be top of your class to get into orthodontics residency. Because they only select a few people, and that's something I really like just because of the lifestyle. And kids enjoy going to the orthodontist. It's not like dentistry where everyone's a little scared. So I really fell in love with the lifestyle, the treating the kids and the adults and making those relationships and transforming someone's smile. So I went and took the leap, did orthodontics for another 2 years, and just became an orthodontist.
That's sweet.
Yep.
So nobody in your family was a doctor before you?
No, my dad and my mom own a liquor store.
Okay.
And my sister is a physician.
So how, when you graduated and became a doctor, that had to be a massive deal?
Yeah. My parents were super proud. So I graduated, in May. So I was the first doctor in the family, if you consider orthodontist a doctor. And then my sister graduated 2 months after me, and she was a physician, anesthesiologist. And then my little sister now is in medical school. So my dad went 3 for 3.
That's awesome. How hard was school?
I always say it's not hard because, what I've seen my parents go through, when you see your dad and mom working 7 days a week, open to close 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. in Detroit, that's hard work, So I always used to tell people, what we're doing is not really hard. We're blessed, right? My parents didn't let me work during school, so I had a lot of advantages. So studying is not really hard when a lot of your friends are doing it. So we used to study together, make memories together. But when you consider hard work, you see your parents work those hours and seeing your dad only 1 day a week, that's hard work. So I always just put that in the back of my mind, and that kind of made school a little easier.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So when your wife is a dentist, did you guys meet in school?
Yeah, so Jemana, Dr. Shiota, she's has a dental practice in Franklin, Michigan. She was a year ahead of me in dental school.
Gotcha.
So we met in dental school. We got married right after I graduated residency in orthodontics in 2022. And then we kind of just built our practices together.
What's that dynamic like? When you guys come home, are you always talking shop?
No, not much. When she's with my best friends, we're all dentists. They talk a lot of shop.
Yeah.
Me and her just, we just catch up on the day and, we leave dentistry.
My wife's a commercial realtor, a little different than what we do, residential side, but it's different enough to where we don't talk a lot
same
about
with
it.
us.
You have that same thing going on.
It's mostly the business side we talk about.
Yeah.
How to grow a business, so-and-so did this, so-and-so didn't do this. So it's more talking about that rather than teeth.
So does she has her own shop. You have 3 of your own. Now 2 years, right? Three locations.
3 right now, yep.
Why? What made you go so big so quick?
I really my dad used to push me to do a lot of business. I started my first office. I built it up, and then some opportunities came where I got a piece of real estate that had orthodontic practice in it, and I was like, let me build this one up. And then another opportunity came, and I wanted to build that one up. So I had a long-term goal in my mind. So I really wanted to grow it and bring a lot of orthodontics on. Right now, I'm kind of staying still with 3. There's a lot on my plate. I did have some unfortunate events happen in my life where, I kind of had to set back a little bit and take care of a few things. But I think 3 is where we're at right now, and it's been a good run.
If you had to do it all over again, would you start with 3? Or would you?
No, I would probably start with 1 or 2.
1 or 2.
Just because you can focus your craft.
Yeah.
A lot of times you kind of put things on the table. For instance, this location you're doing a lot of sponsorships, a lot of events for, and then you have one location you're not doing as much for. My Bingham Farms location was my first love. So that one you guys see on social media, that's the one I kind of built up with all my heart. And now I kind of left that a little bit set back, and now I'm growing the other ones. But when you can just focus on one, you can do a lot of good things.
Right.
So
how many employees you have?
right now we're at 5, and they all travel with me to each location.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
So not every location is open. You book appointments, you're open that day.
Exactly. We have a call center, so if you call any location, someone's going to pick up and schedule you, because we're not really a walk through the door type of business.
Right.
You're by appointment only. So they're always open for calls, but we're there select days.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what is the how much of your time is more being a doctor versus a business owner? Those are two different things.
That's the hardest part about dentistry, because if you want to own your own dental practice, you got to give 100% to healthcare. So you want to maintain that good work. But on the other hand, you're doing 100% business, right? With a lot of people, they're just strictly running the business, right? With me, I'm trying to work on patients, but also make sure everyone's doing their jobs. So there's a lot of pressure on, the doctor. I'm trying to get to that point where I can delegate a lot of that stuff. But it's really tough, because it's not just 9 to 5. You got to go home and do the other side of the business, right? You got to market. You got to go to events. You got to network, meet new people, because your business is dependent on new patients, right? With dentistry, it's a little different. The same patients coming every 6 months. With me, once a patient's completed, that patient's completely done, and you got to go on and get the next patient.
Right.
Right. So you're fighting for every single patient, especially in Metro Detroit. It's very competitive. So you got to set yourself apart and make yourself stand out.
Right. Well, it's sales, right?
Yep.
So now you're a business owner, you're a salesman, and you're a doctor.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hats.
Trifecta, man.
Yeah. When we started DOBI, it was similar. I was a salesperson transforming to a business owner. So, and then we have at the time, I don't know, 6 or 7 staff members right away.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, I went from 100% sales, which is what I was really naturally good at and made a lot of money at, to maybe 20% of my time. But I had to do as much sales. I had to do as much sales in that 20% as I did when I had 100%.
Yeah.
My day just got, way more condensed. So organization, was that a challenge for you in the beginning to wear all these hats?
It was, because I was taught to do everything yourself, right? Growing up, my parents will always work in the store. They trusted us themselves running that store. So when I got into ortho, it was mostly me doing everything: the sales part, selling treatment plans, putting on the braces myself, walking patients back from the waiting room. So I was I was trusting myself, because I knew I could do it the best. When you get a little busier, you got to start delegating, right? And that's where I learned a little bit later in life, where, I got to start delegating certain tasks to certain people in order for me to thrive.
Yeah.
So wish I did that a little earlier on, because now it's a little tougher once people get used to you doing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to scale back now.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation, though.
Well, it's only been 2 years. It sounds like a lot, and it is a lot of time. Yeah. It's a big accomplishment, but what you've done in 2 years, 3 locations, that's awesome. Yeah. So are you in one location 5 days a week in one of those locations?
No, right now I go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday to 13 and Telegraph, and then Tuesday to Northville, and then I sometimes swap it with Kegel Harbor.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then we're trying to bring on a new doctor now to help film the next days.
So what's that process?
Running around, driving a lot, and just.
But the new doctor, what are you looking for? Right before we started here, you talked a little bit about culture, right? Yeah. So when you run a business, culture is a big deal, and we have our core values everywhere. We're constantly talking about culture. And when I first got into business, I had a mentor who kept pounding this into my head: your culture's important, your culture's important. And I'm like, yeah. Your core values,
Yeah.
And then when you get going, you're like, yeah, you either fit or you don't. Yeah. And hanging out with another doctor, you're going to be with them a lot, right, or crushing them with your clients. How do you find that person?
It's tough, because there's not that many orthodontists who graduate. So there's only a select few that you can pull from. With me, I think everyone can do orthodontics, so it's not something I'm worried about. Doing the service is easy, right? It's someone who has the hospitality service, right? So I tell people, even at work, our core values, we're not in the orthodontic business. We're in the hospitality business. Right. We see it in a lot of movies, a lot of big businesses say that. It's really true, because when you come in, regardless of the work you do, if you make them feel good, they'll continue to come back.
For
right?
sure.
We're doing great work. So I know my orthodontists can do put the braces on great, but can they communicate well?
Right.
are the patients feeling comfortable? Because they've been in school for 10 years. A lot of stuff they know is books, studying, taking tests, right? They don't really have that social aspect of themselves, which is very hard to find.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people like to come by me, because they come in, they don't even feel like they're at a doctor's office.
Right.
You know, they're meeting new people, they're connecting with the front desk. Our front desk is asking them, you know, what they've been doing the last few weeks, because we take good notes. So if you tell me you're going on vacation next week, when you come back in 6 weeks for your appointment, I'll probably bring up, you know, that vacation, and patients are really impressed.
Right.
Because they connect well. And we connect well with them when we hear things like, you know, a patient's having a baby, patient's getting married. You know, we'll either send flowers, you know, have a card for them ready, and it just makes that nice connection.
Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of people think like people bring me a lot of gifts to the office, like coffee, you know, stuff like that, and people think it's because, you know, it's this whole social media thing, but it's because we actually care about them, so they come back and care about us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a big part of probably your upbringing too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm Lebanese Italian. I grew up in the hospitality business.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think I've said this in every show I've ever been on or podcast I've done. You know, I grew up moving tables and chairs,
Yeah.
working day and night, weekends, weddings, you know, Thursday through Sunday, 40 hours. Like, I applied, you know, that. My dad pounding us in our head every day is the most important day of someone's life, every single day,
Yeah.
to the real estate business, this is like, there's a lot of, in sales, you're on 24/7, but this side of it is not like that. It's like kind of like it's not really work. And,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's second nature, but it's amazing how many people it's not second nature to.
No. I think it's not something you can be trained on. It's just something you're born with.
Yeah, and that's hard. It's amazing because I think as time goes on, like, what are you thinking of the next gen? Like, are you seeing this in the next gen?
Next, it's gonna be tough because I treat a lot of younger kids, and you know, they're not social at all. You know, they're always on their phone or iPad in front of me, and I try to, you know, communicate with them, ask them how their day is, you know, what's going on. You know, I kind of, when you start working with kids, you're kind of like at the level with a kid, like you kind of understand new things going on. But the eye-to-eye conversation is not there. The hospitality is not there. I don't think they even appreciate the hospitality yet. Hopefully that changes. You know, hopefully it's just a phase. But it's tough because even with the younger people I hire, it's like, hey, like, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, and how to present yourself to the patient. So I think that's the most important part of my business. I think that's what makes us succeed.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lost art that's happening.
Yeah.
So
When you close your eyes at night, you're obviously an entrepreneur and you're a doctor. When you close your eyes at night, how big do you see this thing getting? What's your master big vision?
my goal is to grow this to more locations. I want the brand Profound to be, you know, a household name. When I started off actually in orthodontics, somebody asked me this question before I even had an office. They're like, what do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, when you say the word orthodontics, when you say the word braces or Invisalign, all I want is my name to pop up in the conversation of three. So
Right.
you have your two known guys in the community. I hope my name is in that conversation. If that is part of it, I kind of made it in that field.
Yeah, that's neat. I never really thought about it that way, being the name one of three. I like that.
It's just one of the things. That's why you got to plant the seed. You got to let the seed grow, and then hopefully that happens. And that's what we did on my social media. You know, I pushed a lot of Invisalign at the time. So when people thought of the word Invisalign, my name did start popping up, right? So that ultimately was there, and then people have their selection to choose from. But if I'm not in that conversation, I didn't do my part in order to get my name out there.
Right. So I'm like a business nut. I love talking business. We grew up, we played every sport growing up. We were decent athletes, but like we were at the dinner table and we never talked sports. Where a lot of my buddies, they talk sports. So business is kind of like when my brothers and I get together, like that's what we talk about versus fantasy football, right?
Yeah.
So when I think a lot about doctors, and I always say if they can put the business side to it, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming out of the gates with 3 locations, you know, I guess I'm an analytical person. I mean, I love numbers, and you don't need to tell us numbers, but like, how many doctors can you support with 3 locations?
You could support, each office can probably support 2 doctors.
2 doctors.
Yeah. The problem with us, we started at 0 patients, right? We opened the door, we had no patients, we did startups. So we couldn't afford to put a doctor in each office. So a lot of people say, you have 3 locations, how are you doing all by yourself? Bring in a doctor. It's easy to say bring a doctor in, but who's gonna pay that doctor?
Right, of course.
Right? So my goal was set up shop, get the base patient going, and then bring a doctor and I can introduce those patients to that doctor.
Gotcha.
Because now they have my stamp of approval, right? A lot of people think otherwise. They think you can just, push a doctor and then pay that doctor as you go. I think differently. Let me set up the values, let me set up the core, and then pass it on to a doctor, which is where we're at now with the 2 locations. Because the first one, that's been established. That's pretty much the one I love being at. The other 2 is like, let me set it up, get it ready, and now we're ready to go and set up a doctor in that place.
Because I think, when I think about scaling, we're always coming up with ideas and plans to scale our brands, right? But like when you think, and again, I'm an analytical person. I think a lot about being the family dynamic, the hospitality side of it.
Yeah.
It's harder and harder to find those doctors that meet that. They're out there. You can train them. But have you thought about like when you do scale this thing to 3 locations, 6 doctors, go to more locations, 10 locations, 20 doctors? How do you keep those same core values?
Yeah, it's tough.
And are you mentally prepared for that to change?
So that's the problem with scaling, right? I feel like when you scale to a bigger level, you start losing a little bit of that, those cores. We see that with every business. Every McDonald's isn't the same as the original McDonald's, right? Every restaurant's not the same. You start losing, the connection between people. It just becomes a corporate, value. And that's what I've seen with a lot of dentists now who are scaling a lot, in their field. You can see patients leaving those offices. I get a lot of people that come to me. There's a lot of well-known orthodontists in the area, and they come to me now. I'm like, why are you leaving that office? It's a beautiful office, it's a great doctor. And they're like, well, they're corporate now. It's an assembly line. I go in, I see Dr. So-and-so. Next appointment, I see another doctor. And the moms are upset, dads are upset. They want to see that doctor they came to see. But if you're trying to scale, that doctor can't be there anymore. So there's a fine line, So you got to make sure you're setting limits for yourself. That way your business doesn't kind of decrease. So.
Yeah, it is a fine line. And I'm trying to think of the name of the book. I read a book probably 2 years ago, and it talks about how sometimes bigger isn't always better, and how powerful you can be when you're small. The profitability, market dollars that you're not spending just because of word of mouth and all these crazy things. But when I think about DOBI and scaling DOBI, I do battle with that because I'm like, who's going to bring the energy in the next 3 locations that this team brings, right? Yeah. And I think it's doable, but it also goes back to, you said, if I did it all over again, I would start with 1 location, which there's been moments in the beginning, we've been open going on 7 years now, we just passed our 6-year mark, that I'm like, man, we should have 3 or 4 locations by now. But then there are moments that have happened, and I'm like, thank God we don't have 3 or 4 locations. Right. And we were able to really build that foundation and really understand who we are before we branch off. Yeah. And I think about Sam Walton, who had his first grocery store for 26 years before he even opened up his second one, which is Walmart, and the importance of that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess coming out of the gates, 3 locations, you got a lot going on. That's awesome. But when I see your business, what I see that is extremely unique about you is the social media side. Yeah. Doctors don't normally do that. So, what made you go down that road? Talk to me about social and your business and how that's helped your business get to where you are today.
Yeah. So the social media thing just happened during school. Actually, we were heading into COVID during my last year of residency, and I had a lot of time to sit at home and think, right, while I was finishing school. And a lot of times I was just thinking, how can I start growing this brand where people can recognize me? TikTok was just starting during COVID, and I've seen a lot of people get very famous off of TikTok, and TikTok wasn't my thing. So I was figuring out ways how Instagram could be of service for me. And then I always looked at different industries. So a few things I saw was the wedding industry. I used to always come home and I had 2 sisters and my mom, and they would always talk about, oh, did you see so-and-so's wedding? Did you see so-and-so's flowers and things? And I was like, how do they know this stuff? And it was just through social media. People are always looking at on social media. People are hiring people off social media. They don't even know their work yet, just because someone posted it. And I said, let me implement that into my system. So I started during school seeing my patients, and I'd post people during school. Hey, I'm treating you. Can I post you on the Instagram? They were just regular people. And people started seeing other people being posted, and then their friends started reaching out and saying, hey, I heard you do Invisalign, can you do my Invisalign? And that's where it kind of took off. And then when I graduated, didn't have an office, I bought one of my machines that I need, and I parked it at my wife's office. And then people started hitting me up again saying, hey, you want to do Invisalign? Can you do it for us? And at the time I said I didn't have an office, but I'll see you at my wife's office. So
And you need a machine for that,
you need a
obviously.
machine, yeah. So
Gotcha.
I invested in the machine, parked it there, didn't have an office, and just rented space. You know, didn't pay her, but
Put in the back of your dad's liquor store. Got a couple machines.
I
back
should have
there.
done that. I should have done no room over there. But yeah, so every time someone came in, I would just offer them, be like, hey, can I take a picture with you, post on my Instagram? At the time, we were very small, so they didn't really mind. But the seed got planted there. So after everyone seeing this girl, that guy go there, they thought they should be a part of that, right? And we see that in different industries. People follow what other people do, right? I get my hair cut at a salon because I've seen a lot of people go to the salon. You know, I get some clothes by certain people because I see a lot of people I know get their clothes from that people. So society's different. We go by things we see, and I took advantage of that, and it's been a blessing. But you have to do the right work, right? And then we start sprinkling in a little bit of giveaways, you know. So people think I just started doing like crazy giveaways. Started with a Starbucks $20 card, and then worked my way up to a Chanel bag, and a
That's
Chanel
cool.
bag to 2 Chanel bags, and then, you know, tickets. And we try to like theme it around like events going on in the city. And then it just took off, man. I didn't think it would happen, and then the athletes started coming in. That's one thing I always wanted to do. I always told my friends, hey, I want to be like a celebrity, you know, orthodontist. And, you know, in Detroit, we don't have many celebrities. We have athletes.
Right.
So got a few athletes, and then word just spread.
That's cool.
You know, so it's been a blessing. But like I said, you have to do the good work with it. But it was a lost territory where I think orthodontics never tapped into. And I became the first one to get into that territory. And then, you know, you start seeing a lot of people follow it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was one of the first because it helped me take off. And
How important is it to be first?
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important, because I get a lot of orthodontists hit me up and they're like, hey, we're trying to do a giveaway. We're trying to do this. And I'm like, you're doing very similar things. I don't mind it, but you got to set yourself apart, right? If you're not someone who's social on social media, don't
Doesn't
try
work.
to be. It doesn't work.
It's not authentic.
Like I take pictures of my clients. It doesn't look awkward, right? It looks cool, right? I see my friends who sometimes take pictures that just looks too like forced, right? So it's got to be something like organic, right? If you're a family person, you know, talk with your family, post your family, do educational videos. That works too, right? If you're someone who likes going to schools, my wife loves going to schools and talking to kids and doing a lot of lessons. That's her thing, right? You can't just kind of mimic somebody else and try to succeed.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was able to be one of the first, like trendsetters. But I didn't create the wheel. I just reinvented the style of it, you know. Because a lot of people say like, oh, we're trying to do a giveaway, we're not trying to copy. I'm like, dude, I didn't invent this. Like,
Yeah.
I just made it unique, you know.
Well, there's a lot of people here that used to that has brought you up to me. They're like,
Yeah.
we got to do what Justin's doing. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm like like an orthodontist. Like everyone kept bringing you up, like
Yeah,
three
yeah.
or four, people that know you here, and I'm like, then I went to your social. I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
this is very impressive. So
Yeah.
like 50,000 followers.
Yeah, I think right now we're at almost 40,000.
That's awesome.
It's been a good run, man. I never thought it would happen like that. It's every time. Sometimes I gotta pinch myself to think like I'll be treating an athlete, and I'll be like,
That's crazy.
and people are like, you should die for this, and I'm like,
So you're
"Nah,
basically
it's
like
normal."
in his mouth, and you're
Yeah.
all like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it still blows my mind, and people are like think it's like normal. I'm surprised every day, but it's a cool experience, and it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Did you get your first athlete from social or from
Yeah,
a
from social.
relationship?
No,
that
from
you do?
social.
From social, and then
Yeah.
they obviously just keep
They told
telling.
their friends, and their friends started coming to me, and people were traveling from Ann Arbor, from Michigan games, and then Lions, Tigers, Red Wings,
That's
Pistons.
cool.
A lot of it's now networking too. If I see people, I just kind of shoot my shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people think it's kind of awkward when I go up to an athlete and be like, "Hey, I do this teeth, this guy's teeth, just come through," and then they trust me.
You should always be promoting yourself.
Yeah.
If you're not talking about yourself, nobody else is.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
The best thing about social media though is the connections you make, right?
Yeah.
It's the business comes with it, but it's just like meeting new people and connecting with people. Like I go out to eat, so and so says they follow me. It's really cool, and it's got me to be in networks with a lot of people I never thought I'd be. Right? I'd never be sitting with you guys at a table, without this happening, or certain industries. Like there's a lot of big names I know now, just through social media, which 5 years ago, like there's no way this person would ever know who I was. So it's been a blessing.
That's awesome. Give us a crazy story. Is there anything crazy that there's something that happened in the chair that is like pops in your mind that you're like, this happened, it was nuts or funny?
Honestly, trying to think of any funny stories, but The best one was probably, it's not really a funny story. The best one was when, an NBA, a Pistons player came to the office. And usually they come after hours. So they'll come either before the office opens or after it closes, because we do see a lot of patients during the day. But one of the Pistons player came during prime, like 3 o'clock after school appointments. And the office had about 20 to 30 kids in there. And when this guy walked in, the whole office exploded. Like, they were trying to sneak behind walls, trying to see who it is, and it became chaotic. And that was probably the best day of work, where like my office became one of those places where like kids were just going nuts.
That's awesome.
And the good enough, the Pistons player was taking pictures with all the kids, and all the moms loved it. So that's probably the most interesting time I had in my office regarding a sports
That's
player.
fun.
Crazy,
That is cool. That would be cool.
Yeah,
to see.
nothing really crazy happens in the office.
Is it naturally your business? Is it your business? Sounds like you're servicing a lot of kids, but naturally, is orthodontist just a ton of kids in the industry?
Typically, you just treat your 12 to 13-year-olds. That's the model of orthodontics. We go get dentist referrals. They send you the kid, and then you take care of them, right? My motto is, when I graduated, is treat the moms first, right? So a lot of people think I only do Invisalign. It's not true. I do braces too for kids, but my business model was, if I treat the moms, like if I treat Raina and she sees I do a good job, she'll more likely bring her daughter or son to me, right? So that was my motto. So treat all the adults. Now the adults trust me with their kids. Because I'm not going to get the patient that already has 3 kids and 2 of them already went to an orthodontist.
Right.
They're going to stick with their same orthodontist for the 3rd kid. My goal is to treat the young moms who are just about to have kid 1 and 2. So ideally, in theory, my business should do really well in about 6 years from now, because all the fresh moms are going to have a 7-year-old by then, and then I'm really going to reap the benefits of all those patients.
6 years from now. So that's 8 years total of you in business. I've heard you say a couple times, like, now that you're getting into year 3, your business starts to, again, talking to a younger version of you, or a mentoring a younger, person that wants to be a doctor. 8 years, that's a process.
Yeah.
Mindset for that process, is that something that you were prepared for day one? Like, this is going to be a very long process, 6, 7, 8 years before we start reaping the benefits. Things I did 5 years ago don't pay off for another,
it's tough.
or 5 years ago are starting to pay off today, or even more 3 more years from now. How do you handle that mindset? And then, what do you, I guess, what is your advice for whoever's watching this, the younger gen that wants to get into the business? Because I think a lot of people underestimate that, especially with social media. They see this and they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a Benz by next year. I'm gonna make $200,000 a month. It doesn't work like that.
They fall in love with the salary. So a lot of people think they deserve what they're entitled to. Not me. I just say, like I said, there's a lot of orthodontists. You just gotta set your goals. It's a long-term game. It's not overnight, right? Regarding if it's orthodontics, if it's social media, you got to build this up. Like, people think this following became overnight. I've been doing this since 2021. It's been 3 years now. There's been a lot of things happening to get the following to that count. Patient-wise, it's a lot of people I've treated to get to this point now. A lot of investment, a lot of time. So a lot of kids think, to graduate, I'm going to have an office full of patients. It doesn't work like that, especially in our field where everything's based on a new patient. It's a long-term game, and you just got to wait it out, and good things will come to those who wait.
I agree.
Yep.
It's a hard thing, getting young agents in here, and it's like 6 months in, they're like, I don't think I could do this anymore. It's like, what were you expecting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They see it, the flash. They see it on social media. It's a curse, man. It's a curse. So those are the type of people you don't want in your office. I always say, was a book I read where it's like the most dangerous person to have in your office is someone who envies what the other person has and thinks they deserve of it, which I always tell people, I don't deserve what someone else has, right? I didn't put the time in what that person has.
Yeah.
And so is the person, who's not working as hard as me, right? They can't go out and say, I deserve to treat so-and-so. I deserve to have this type of item or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't put those hours in. If you're working Monday through Thursday and I'm working Monday through Sunday, that person deserves it, right? And it's a hierarchy, right? You can't think you're entitled to something if you don't deserve it.
So there's this entrepreneur I was listening to, and he says monster companies, and he said, if I handed, I think he started off as like a preacher and it turned
Yeah.
into like a motivational speaker, and he's got all these different businesses now. But he's like, if I took my business and handed it to a young preacher, you're going to just screw it all up.
Yeah.
This took 30 years. The process, he kept saying, the process, you got to trust the process. Like, you got to fail, you got to start small.
Yeah.
And again, going back to my business, I relate everything to what we do here because that's where I'm at all day. But like, if I told a young agent, hey, here's 5 leads, you won't close them.
Right.
Or if I told an experienced agent, here's 5 leads or 5 contacts, they'd get them done. Because it's,
They've been through it.
yeah, you have to go through the process is extremely, extremely important.
Yeah.
So how about mentorship? You have anybody like helping you, like when you do have, because you, I
Yeah.
mean, listen, you're human. I would have to bet you have those days where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Or
Yeah.
what's next?
The good thing about being in our community is there's a lot of people who are successful in business, right? And I always like to pick brains. So like you telling me, how you run things, I use that stuff. I go to, get my haircut at Six Salon. I took their whole reception concept and brought it into my office.
Yeah.
So I always look for mentorships in even indirect ways, just by going to places. I always pay attention to things, how things were served. Even here, I walked in, the guy shooting the video made me a cup of coffee. That goes a long way, right? He could easily have said, we're going to be sitting in the back and get started, right? It's the little things that you take from certain businesses. So it can be anybody or it can be just going to a place. But I do have a lot of mentors, a few doctors, my dad, my brother-in-laws, all very successful, which I just pick their brain and try to grow that way. But yeah, you could pick up a lot of things even without mentorship just by seeing how other people run their business. So pick up concepts and use them towards your office.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see it when I travel. Like,
Yeah,
I'll do it
that's
all
the
the
best
time.
thing.
You go to
Yeah.
these, like I was in Florida and I went to this coffee shop, and the counter and display was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, right when I walked in, I felt good. And I looked
Yeah.
at my wife, I'm like, how do you feel? And she's, this feels amazing.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm like, this is what needs to happen
Yep.
when you walk into DOBI.
Yeah.
Like, nobody has pastries like this when they
Yeah.
walk into why can't we do this at a real estate shop?
Yeah.
And now more people come in. She's like, I love it. And he's like, so now it's like in our idea book,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And it's like, we got to be able to do this. But
Traveling gives you the best
Yeah.
ideas. I always tell my friend that, I'm like, just go to Las Vegas and see how you
Vegas
feel.
is another one.
Yeah, even because we get people who are like a little bit upset on the phone, can't get an appointment, can't do this. And, when you're working at the front desk, you might get irritated and you might, snap. So I always say, if, you're on the other side, you walked into a hotel and your room wasn't ready, and you were upset, what does the front desk do for you? They usually either throw you something, a free buffet, maybe get you that room. So they always figure out a way to solve the issue. So when you think of something happening in your situation, just think, what would you like as the customer? And if you think that way, everything becomes easy.
And when you have a mindset that's way and you experience, when you come across something that isn't that way, it starts to drive you a little nuts.
Yeah.
Like I have a car issue right now.
Yeah.
I bought a car I bought it 90 days ago and it's been in the shop 30 of the last 90. It's a brand new car. It keeps going haywire on me. And at the shop, at the dealership, the communication, it's terrible.
Sucks.
And the car is not cheap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are you guys Cadillac? How are you guys like, and it's like mind boggling. So you guys are one of the biggest brands in the world.
Yep.
And like this experience, and that's what I mean by scaling. Like I sit in that, but if, Cadillac's on how many generations now? If the first gen was there, that
Definitely
wouldn't happen,
exactly.
right?
It's a lost art.
It's a lost art, and like it's my biggest fear because I'm like, this will never happen at any of my places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
100%.
if you weren't a doctor, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't a doctor, my passion was always sports. I always wanted to be in the sports industry. I wasn't that athletic. I mean, not enough to be in the professionals. But I really love business, right?
Yeah.
And I love the hospitality side of business. So any kind of service industry, I love like growing up I never worked a liquor store business, but I love the customer service that came with, retail, liquor store. I always see my dad and mom talking to customers, making them happy. And then seeing, my uncles and all my cousins who are in that business. I love the relationships and I love that part of business because it's an art, man. And if you really do it well, you stand out.
Yeah.
So
That's
anything hospitality, I love.
It's important. No kids yet, correct?
No kids, though.
Want kids?
Yeah.
Okay. So your dad and your mom, obviously it was important for them to have you guys be doctors, right? Was it just doctors, or I want you to be an attorney, or so, was it, or
Mostly
you're
doctors.
mostly doctor?
Yeah.
Did you embrace that? Obviously, when you're younger, you probably now do, and I'm not going to answer for you, but like, would you do the same thing to your kids?
Yeah, I would probably push my kids. I always say this: my kids, I want them to do the best what they can do. Right. The good thing my dad and my mom never did was put pressure on me.
That's good.
They never put me on a pedestal or thought like my kids were better than so-and-so kids, which I saw a lot happen. There was a lot of pressure. Like my dad would go to party and sometimes say like, my son's gonna be an orthodontist. I'm like, Dad, you can't say that. There's a chance I don't become an orthodontist, right? It's not just you sign up and you become one. So I taught him that early, and he never put pressure on me after that, because if it didn't happen, it didn't happen, right? But I knew I was playing with house money, right? My dad and my mom gave me everything. They didn't make me work during school. There's so many kids that have to work during school. So I didn't want them to let them down. So I had some pressure on that side. But when you're playing with house money, you can do whatever you like. And that's what my parents gave me the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do for my kids. The probably thing I would like my kids in the future is just to work a little earlier so they can get an understanding of the business side of things, rather than me at 30 years old starting my first job as an orthodontist. There's a lot of learning things you have to do.
Because it was school.
It was school. My dad always pushed school.
Yeah.
You know, you need money, here's money. You know.
How was that transition? I don't think about that, because I was the opposite.
Tough.
I always said I wish I would have done more, not necessarily school, but other forms of education versus just, I was in the family business from when I could walk to starting my own business, and I always said, man, I wish I had some other experiences, but. Yeah, what was that like? I never really thought about that.
It was tough. Like, even trying to get a loan for a business, like, my dad's always like, oh, buy cash, Middle Eastern stuff. And if I were to go back, I'd be like, Dad, this is not what we do. Like, get a loan, get more extra money for cash flow for, for emergencies. But my dad was always playing it safe on that side of things. But, I didn't know much, right? So I would tell the younger kids who are in school, like, I'll try to give them advice, like, hey, how to open a tax ID, things like that, how to open a checking account.
Right.
How to go to the bank and drop a deposit, I used to see it, but I never knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's my advice to younger people trying to, get out of the field is like, hey, learn these things first. Forget about actually understanding dentistry, because anyone can do dentistry. When you graduate, it's a craft.
But it's a long process.
It's a long process.
So you really can't prolong that. If you want to get into that business, you really can't prolong that process. And
No.
once you're in school mode, it's hard to get out of school mode.
That's the problem.
And back into it, because there's really no time for work, right?
There's none. Once you're in your actual craft school, like, you just focus on school. But on the outside, when you're out of school, there's not that much of homework anymore, because you're doing everything in school.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I'd advise people to is go out and get real world experience. And it's not about real world experience in dentistry, like real world experience in business.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of my friends during school would go out and be like, let's go watch this celebrity dentist and do beautiful work. It's like, dude, I'd rather go learn about business and how to open businesses.
Did you feel that way from?
No, I regret that.
You regret
I
that?
regret that, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I wish I did that, because if I were to do it over again, I would have systems in place, because I would know what to do. Yeah. Instead, me and my friends could have opened multiple practices together. Yeah. Instead, we were all like, let's be the best type of dentist, to be. And then we lost the communication where we can just build something together.
But you know what? That's what's great about being the first gen and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say, like, you meet all different types of people in business, first, second, third, fourth gens, and they all have their own way of doing things, and they're all great in their own way. But it's frustrating being the first gen, but it's also like very rewarding in the end when you're sitting there and you're like, man, like nobody gave this to me. Yes, your dad and your parents made it nice because you said you're playing with house money, but like, I don't think being the first person in your field, in your family, I don't know if it's possible. You're not going to know all those answers. No. That's why people build houses 3-4 times, because they get it right by the fourth time, right? Yeah. Like, you're not going to do, so you can't beat yourself up over that. But yeah, that makes sense. What do you not like about what you do?
I love everything about what I do.
Really? There's not one thing about it that you don't enjoy?
No, I love it. I love the relationships I create. So I created my brand the way I wanted it to be. So the patients we see, they're like, man, how do you see so many of these cool patients? Like, not just saying cool like an athlete. I'm talking about, people in our community, right? I go to church, I go to events, I'm seeing my patients out. People don't like that. I enjoy it, but that's how I created my practice to be. So I'm seeing patients that make my job fun, right? And the networking that I do with my patients. I meet so many new cool people and CEOs of companies and connections to so and so things, and it just makes my job fun. I always tell people if you don't on Sunday, if you don't look forward to going to work on Monday, your job sucks.
It's not what you want
And
to be doing.
every single one of my staff members loves coming to work.
I love it.
Because it doesn't feel like work, right? We created that environment. We created the type of atmosphere that it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's not that much work pressure. So it's been a good thing. But I would say the only thing I don't like about the field is you're dependent on a lot of referrals.
Yeah.
Right. We were had a conversation like we depend on dentists to feed us, right? In my case, why I like my job is I based it on direct to consumer, right? You may come to me because you know who I am, so I'm able to, thrive that way. So that makes my job a little easier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the Sunday thing and not looking forward to work. I mean, that's very important. I feel bad for the people that don't feel that way.
Yeah.
I do, because I feel the same way.
Yeah.
But what's cool is also when you said it's one thing for you to love going to work, but your team loves going to work. And I'm only, when it comes to starting a business, I'm only, 4 or 5 years ahead of you. We started with the same amount of people, 5, 6, 7 of us. And I can honestly say now there's over 120 with staff. Staff and our agents, we're at like 130, 140 people. It's the same culture.
Yeah.
It is literally like the kind of fun we had with the 5 or 6 of us, which was the best time ever. You're now seeing it happen without us. Like you come out here on the floor and you'll have like the same dynamic, but that's why it's so important for your originals to like, because you'll add 2 more and they'll just fall in line, or they won't and they leave, and then it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That just shows that you guys are gonna, I'm excited to see where your brand ends up, your company, yourself.
Yeah.
I don't want to wish time away, but you're gonna be a powerhouse. I can tell by that response. Obviously, there's a lot of competition in your business, right? I go get Invisalign from XYZ doctor down the street versus you. Is it a totally different process? Is the technology different?
Yeah,
Explain
I
that.
think it is. I've tried to master my consult. The consult is the most important part of your, of your first appointment, because that's the first impression the patient's getting of you. So every time I do a consult, I try to make it better. I never say this is the right way to do it. So with me, first moment you walk into the door, you're getting introduced by me. So the doctor comes to the lobby, introduces themselves, and then says, hey, someone's gonna take you back. And what we do is a virtual mold of your teeth. We don't do that nasty putty stuff that we used to do back in the day.
Yeah. Used to choke on.
Yeah. So then we take you back and put a before and after on the screen. And I design the smile with the patient. So the patient's seeing me the whole time. A lot of times you go to the orthodontist office, you're not gonna see the orthodontist. You're gonna see him for about a few minutes, tell you what you need, and get out of there, right? And I work at other orthodontist offices, so I've been there, I've seen it all. But mine is more master the consultation by introducing yourself, seeing what the patient needs. You might see me in the lobby making the patient a cup of coffee. I'm not too good to make a cup of coffee for somebody, or grab them a water bottle or something like that.
Ask questions.
Yeah, ask questions.
Don't
Get
just
to know
talk,
them.
right?
Yeah.
And give them what you want. Ask questions.
Yeah, and get to know them. The first thing is not talking about teeth. It's like, hey, where do you work? Where do you come from? Tell me about your life, and then start talking about teeth.
That makes a lot of sense. What's the worst thing you can do for your teeth?
Worst thing is eating a lot of candy. Sugars, drinking a lot of pop, that will destroy your teeth. And just make sure you brush morning and night, because people don't brush at night as they should. And a lot of that sugar seeps into your teeth and into the night, and your body's not actively fighting it.
Yeah. What about plaque? I took my kids my wife took the kids to, we have 4 kids. We took our 3 oldest to the dentist, and they stress, flossing. Yeah. Everybody stresses flossing. You don't want plaque. I get it. It builds up on your teeth. But it's also bad for your heart?
Yeah, a lot of times you will build up plaque.
How does that correlate?
You incorporate into your body, it can dislodge, go into your body. And what plaque does, it stores bacteria. It's like a solidified rock on your tooth, so it can harbor the bacteria. Bacteria can't just sit on the tooth as good, but if you have something holding on to it, then bacteria can stay there. So that's why they say it's bad. So every 6 months you go to your cleaning, your dentist just scrapes it off, and then the bacteria just kind of releases itself.
Gotcha.
So you always want to make sure you stay up to date with your dentist. Shout out to my wife, Dr. Shiota in Franklin. So if you need a new dentist, she's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, couple little things before we end this. There's a quote: "Teeth are always in style."
Yeah.
I think it was by Dr. Do you know who?
Dr. Seuss.
Yes. Boom. You do know your craft. I always say master your craft. You do know your
They
craft.
prepped me before the show.
Yo, they told you. They just was Rena texting you?
Yeah.
All right.
She
When
prepped
you,
me.
what you know, what do you
Your
think
staff
of
was
when you
on
hear
track.
that?
They prepared me, man.
Yeah.
No,
What's your
but
take on that?
I think that's true. You know, the smile is the first thing you see on a person. It shows expression. It shows emotion. And you need it. You need that for function, right? We need teeth to eat. So teeth are always important. It's always, never going away.
Right.
So, but people with beautiful teeth show it. They smile more. Someone who smiles more, they're more likely to, be happy. It's the same thing I do with a lot. I do wellness programs. I know I came here once for a wellness program, and I said, hey, get nice teeth. It gives you more confidence. Gives you more confidence to succeed in business, right? Same thing with losing weight. You start losing weight, you start feeling better yourself, you start expressing yourself better, and it makes you succeed more in life.
Yeah.
So
It is. It's a confidence thing for sure.
Yep.
Death row meal. Last meal. What are you eating?
Probably spicy rigatoni.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I
Who's
love
cooking
pasta.
it?
Carbone.
Oh, okay. Nice. Was your mom a good cook growing up, or your
my mom's
dad?
good. My mom's a good cook, but I love Chaldean food.
Yeah.
So she's probably gonna hate me for that. So if anything, probably Rizzo Morocco, which is rice and stew.
Got you. So for her, it's that. We'll edit
Yeah.
that part in for
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
We'll send her her own, and then we'll send
Yeah.
everybody else.
But I love
the other.
Italian food. Always tell people in another lifetime I'm Italian.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm Italian Lebanese, and when
Yeah,
people
you're
see
the
me,
best
I'm like,
of
"This,
both
you get this size by being Italian
Yeah,
Lebanese. It's
yeah.
nonstop. That's all we do is eat. So everything revolves around that and wine.
Exactly.
Well, Justin, I can't thank you enough for being here. Again, I love seeing. The point of this show is. It's Giants, so
Yeah.
it's where you're headed, what you are today, masters of their crafts. I think you can feel the passion when you talk about what you do.
Yeah.
I love it. It's getting more and more rare. Like when we talk about people we want to have on our show, it's getting harder because it's harder to find these people that really care and want to take their business to the next level and for the right reasons. It's not about money.
No,
You know what I
never
mean?
been
The
about
money
money.
will come. And I'm sure it was always like that, but I feel like that's more important than ever. You're not doing things for the dollar. You're doing things because you love it. You care about your people, the hospitality. I mean, you're speaking our language. So again, I'm super excited to see where your business heads. And I know it's going to go in the right direction. And I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
everyone in the community who supports us. And that's the biggest thing, is always support the people who trust you and support you from day one. And that will go a long way. So every time I'm on a podcast, I always give a shout out to all the community, especially the Chaldean community, who always supported me and gave me my chance. And they've been great to me and made me to where I am. So it's been a blessing.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with everything. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.